Hello everyone, so I've just completed several groups of Roman gladiators that I thought I would show you. These have been on my painting desk for quite a while now, probably getting on for a year, and basically I just put a little bit of paint on them every now and again, so they progress quite slowly, but quite pleased that I've finally got them finished. So they are 25mm scale according to the manufacturer. They don't seem that small to me, certainly smaller than the large 28mm, but it goes back to this thing about how manufacturers just vary in their definitions of what scale is. But these are from CP Models, and CP Models do sell other figures that they define as 28mm, so I suppose they have to make that distinction themselves, but these will fit in with 28mm ranges, I'm sure. On the subject of CP Models, I mentioned them recently in a video I made on disappearing wargaming companies, and the reason I included CP Models was that their website just disappeared. I actually showed the page, the blank page, on that video to show that they had that their presence on the internet seemed to have gone. But I'm pleased to say they're back now. It might be my failing memory, I don't know, but the website does seem to be slightly different in appearance, but not remarkably. But one of the things I think has changed is that the banner for the website is now called Checkpoint Models rather than CP Models. So whether that was the case before or not, I don't know, but I would have no reason to refer to them to CP Models. I would have been calling them Checkpoint Models all along, so I think that probably has altered. And the other thing that has changed is that I was quite careful. I've got 4 different groups of gladiators to show you. This is the first of them. And I thought during the painting process, I was quite careful to keep them in their original groupings, and yet that has altered very slightly now, or it's different. I won't say it's altered because it's quite possible that I got them mixed up during this year-long process. But anyway, I've put them now into the groups as they appear and are being sold on the internet. And that gets me on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, is the nomenclature of all these different gladiator types, because the website now, and again this is something I'm not sure whether it did before, but certainly now when you go to the website it will show you a picture of the gladiators, and it will give you 6. It will say the pack includes this, that and the other. Doesn't actually label each figure individually, and I have found it quite difficult in some cases to distinguish which gladiator is supposed to be which type. So the guy with the trident and the net quite obviously is a Retiarius, so I have labelled him as such. More on how I've done that in a moment. But this particular pack is meant to include a Samnite, a Retiarius, a Thracian, a Secutor, a Mimillo, and a Cataphractii. Now, Cataphractii I've never heard of. I've found it quite difficult to find them on the internet and discover what their distinguishing features were. The name to me suggests a cataphract, so a sort of heavily armoured cavalryman. So I was confused by that at the beginning. So what basically, to cut this story short, what I've done is where I can easily identify the type, I have labelled it as such. So I've labelled him as Retiarius. I've labelled him as a Murmillo at the back there because it's pretty obviously a Murmillo. He, to me, at the back there on the left, looks like he should be a Secutor. So I've labelled him as such, but I've given my own descriptions to most of the other ones. I have kept a Thracian or a Thrax in this group, but to be honest, I can't see a Thracian appearance on any of these figures. The most obvious missing item would be the Thracians fought with a kind of curved blade, and none of these figures have curved blades. So I've decided to call the guy at the back there a Thracian. One of them in this six, I presume, has to be a Thracian. In the whole 22 figures that I've painted up, none of them have curved swords. So I've gone with that. But the other two, I've changed their nomenclature to something that I think is more appropriate. So the chap centre front there, I've called a Provocator, and this chap here, I have called a Hoplomachus. Now the Hoplomachus, again, this will alter depending on where, what reference you use or which internet site you look at or whatever. But the Hoplomachus, the name suggests a hoplite, so having the Greek hop-like appearance. But on other sources, I've found that the Hoplomachus had the appearance of a Roman legionary, and he definitely has apart from his shield, he definitely has, the closest appearance to a Roman legionary. So I've called him a Hoplomachus. Okay, let me just move these figures around a little bit so you can see the ones at the back a little bit better. And then I want to talk a little bit about how I labelled them, because I'm quite pleased with that. So with all this confusion and so on, I was going to have to put labels on at least on the bases underneath, as a kind of aid memoir, as it were. But recently I printed up on my 3D printer some bases, or some tokens really, for a friend of mine for the game of General Dame 2, and I realised I could do a sort of similar technique, use a similar technique with these figures. So rather than put them on bases, on 25mm bases, I 3D printed some 25mm discs, and onto those discs I wrote the nomenclature of what the various types are, raised it slightly from the disc, and then put the basing material around. So these red marks that you can't really make out very well on the front of the bases there are actually the names. So I thought that was a really sort of nice way of doing it. And now I'm probably not going to be able to focus in sufficiently for you to be able to see, but you may be able to make out, I don't know, probably not, but there you can read the word Murmillo. And the other nice thing is that I used the font, I think it was called AR Julian, and it has a sort of an appearance of the ancient Roman inscriptions that you see on Roman buildings, dilapidated Roman buildings and so on. So it worked really well. So the font, some of the letters are kind of run together. So the I is often attached to the adjacent letter, but it just has that Roman appearance. So I was really pleased with that. It's really pleased with the way that turned out. So anyway, before I witter on too long, let me put up another group of 6 figures to show you. Okay, so this is the next group of 6. I should have said on those previous ones that the reason I often visit CP Models website is that they acquired a lot of the old Steve Barber sculpts. Steve Barber quite often just stop issuing particular ranges and pass them on to other manufacturers. If you're lucky, sometimes they just seem to disappear. One of the ones I've always regretted and miss is their Steve Barber's range of Mongols that I really liked. And I haven't been able to find those anyway. But anyway, these Gladiators used to be, well, not these ones you're looking at now, but in general, the Gladiators used to be produced by Steve Barber, and you can now get them through CP Models, or Checkpoint Models as they now seem to be calling themselves. But this particular group have been sculpted by someone called Al Elder, who may well be the proprietor of CP Models. I'm not sure. But they are slightly different. They're the same size as the other figures, but 4 of these have head variants, so you can choose the heads you want to put onto 4 of them. Now with these ones, in terms of the description of what the Gladiator types are, I am very kind of dubious about what they have called them. According to the website, it says classes of Gladiator in this pack include Thracian, Retiarius, Velite and Mamillo. So they only actually give you 4 types, and yet there are 6 figures. So I have chosen to call all but one of them Murmillos. The shields are attached to the figure, so you can't alter the shield, and none of the shields look to me like the classic Murmillo rectangular longer shields that I would associate with a Murmillo, so you just have to live with that. Some of them as well have quite odd weaponry. I'm not saying that the weapons weren't used in the arena, but it's not the sort of typical weapon that you would expect a Murmillo to use, sort of short sword. These sort of mace-like weapons might have belonged to a different category of Gladiator, I don't know. So a little bit less happy with the definitions of what the troop types here are. I'll just bring forward the back row so to give you a better look at them. I mean, the only one I've got any confidence about really is the chap at the front there, who is quite obviously a Retiarius, got the trident and net, so no doubts about him. But the others, yeah, I've called them all Murmillos, but I mean it's going to vary in the rules anyway, whatever rules I choose to use. I mean, I play Jugular, so they're suitable for Jugular, but I'm probably going to try out Sons of Mars, which I acquired quite a long time ago now. I think I acquired them at the same time I acquired these figures. Anyway, on to the next group. Okay, so next up we have a group of 4. These are also ex-Steve Barber models. I think they're probably intended to be more personality figures on the they're called Champions of the Arena, and on the website the gladiator type isn't given. They've all got names, so more personality. But I didn't want to give them the names. I wanted to define their gladiator type, and had a problem with the female gladiator. I've just described her as a gladiatrix, but that's actually not a Roman term. I think it dates, I think it was the Victorian era where a term for a female gladiator came in, but it still doesn't describe the weaponry that she uses or the type of sort of the way that she fought. I'm not sure that's even been properly clarified by historians, how female gladiators were, sort of defined. So I've just called her a gladiatrix and left it at that. The chap next to her is fighting with two swords, so he's quite obviously a Dimacharius, so I didn't have a problem with that. And then the two behind them, one was pretty easy to decide on, but the other one wasn't. The chap that's wearing the bull's head on top of his head is defined as Minotaur on the website, but I had to decide on a gladiator type. So in the end, I've kind of fudged it a little bit. I've called him a Crupoliarius, but simply because he reminds me a little bit of the gripping beast figure of the Crupoliarius in the game of Jugular, but he's not really armoured sufficiently. The Crupoliarius was much more heavily armoured, but anyway, got away with that. And the chap next to him, I've called a Velites, because he has got a whole bundle of throwing javelins, so I think he's pretty obviously fighting as a Velites, so pretty happy with him. So two of those, not sure about the definition of the type, but two of them pretty clearly, you can pick out what they are. Okay, and then there's one other group of 6 to show you. Okay, this is the final group then. Again, Steve Barber, ex-Steve Barber. Again, some of the terms for them I'm happy with, some of them I wasn't. This pack is meant to include a Velites, or a Veles as they call it, a Contra Retiarius, a Laquiarius, a Sagittarius, a Dimacharius, and a Provocateur. So Laquiarius I'm happy with, that guy there. Dimacharius I'm happy with, that guy there, he's got 2 swords. Sagittarius happy with, because he's obviously archer at the back there. The other 3 I have renamed. I've called him Hoplomachus. Thinking about it now, I'm not quite sure why I did, but anyway, that's the name he's got on his base, so I'm sticking with it. Chap at the front I've decided to call a Velites, because he's got throwing javelin, and the chap right at the back there, let's put him at the front now so you can get a better view of him. Yeah, so this chap here, he's got this cutting kind of weapon, so that's obviously what they're calling Contra Retiarius, but they're more commonly known as scissors. So I've defined him as a scissor rather than a Contra Retiarius. Fits on the base more easily anyway. Right, I'll try and put them all in front of the camera just to sum up. Right, there we go then. So it's a bit of a mob, just tried to squeeze them all into frame, so you don't really get a good idea of each individual figure any longer. But yeah, really pleased with these. I've still got a lot of other gladiators from different ranges to paint up, and also a lot of other figures from CP models to paint up, but they are mainly spectators and characters in the crowd and so on. I think there's some Christians about to be thrown to the lions, presumably, in them, and I think they're all ex Steve Barber. But yeah, I've got these out of the way now. I'm not sure when I'll start putting paint to the other ones. But in particular, just wanted to remind you of this 3D printing technique, which is really easy to do, and I think has worked really well in terms of putting the labels onto the bases. I think it's got a really nice appearance. Other uses for it I'm thinking of now is we're putting the names of ships onto the bases of ship models and so on, so that you can tell, at a glance what a particular ship is, rather than having to try and remember the appearance of the ship from memory. So what I'll do, I'll put a link up to that previous video that I made just discussing that technique. So if you have a 3D printer and you want to give it a go yourselves, then take a look at that other video, and it might give you some inspiration for projects of your own. Right, that's it. Thanks very much for watching. See you again on the next video. Bye for now.